What's up? Welcome back to Armor of God Woodworks. Welcome back to the paint room. Look at this beautiful piece right here, man. We salvaged this thing from the trash pile. This was some framing members that were fixed to get just destroyed from this house. So these parts were taken off of a remodel, laid out in the yard. I went and picked them up and built an island. And if you've been following along, you've seen the hood that I built that we already installed on this job. So we're finishing up the island today. And so it's built, sanded. We sanded it down to 220, got all the holes puttied and everything. Left the nail holes that were already in it from previous nails, but we just puttied, like where we nailed it, because who wants to see that? We want to see the old antique stuff. And so we just leave that natural, and that way it just looks beautiful. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a Minwax tongue hole on this, and it'll take 2 coats. So we'll put it on here, let it dry overnight, come back in the morning and sand it out, and we'll put another coat on, and hopefully that'll be it. We tend to put it on until it quits absorbing, and we just did a mantle out of this same wood, 2 coats, sanded 220 in between, and it was fine. It had absorbed all it was going to, so we're good on that. So anyways, it's Thursday. It's almost the end of the day. It's been a long week. Like to end the week on something relaxing. So this was going to be it. So let's put some tongue hole in this thing, darken it up, and we'll just watch it transform together. This is the tongue hole. It's kind of an amber color. Absorbs really well. I don't have my fan going because this doesn't really emit any kind of an odor. You can smell it, but it's non-toxic. It's not really going to mess me up. Simple 2-inch wide foam brush, easiest thing to put tongue oil on, and it absorbs it up really good and holds it for a while. So let's get this thing rolling and see what it'll look like. It's real easy to apply this stuff. You just put it on there. It's real runny, so just put it on there very liberally. Put a lot of it on there. Make sure you don't miss a spot. If you get any runs on it, just make sure you wipe back over it, and it'll even it right back out. And make sure on these joints and cracks and stuff, you get really good down in there where the baseboard meets the main panel right here. You want to make sure you get that edge really, really good, because that's where people are gonna, everybody's gonna come up here and just prop their foot up on the back of an island. You don't know what people are going to do. You got to build your stuff where it's indestructible. You'd be surprised what people will do on these things. They might get up here and dance on it or something. You never know. But like I said, this wood was salvaged, and I just happened to be on the job today that they were going to, kind of get rid of it. And so I ran it past the homeowners about doing their island and their hood about it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that's great." So here we are. But you can see how it's changing that color right there on the bottom, and that was a little bit lighter piece of wood. We'll get up here on this frame, and the good thing about the tongue oil is it doesn't take away from the natural color of the heart pine, because with the heart pine you're going to have some reds and yellows, some browns, and it really depends on what part of the wood that you get it out of. The closer to the pith you get, usually the better contrast of colors you're going to get, and the more you get to the outside, you're going to get more of the red colors. If you get into where it's a little bit lighter, that's where you're going to have a lot of your sapwood, and you're going to have a lot of clogged up sandpaper and a lot of clogged up planer blades. Usually whenever we're running this heart pine, we have to clean the planer a couple times, just so to make sure it's still pulling through, because it'll quit pulling because all the pull teeth get gummed up with this stuff, with the sap and the resin. And whenever it does that, it'll quit pulling the wood, and then it'll just leave like little burn marks on it. And you don't want that, because it's really hard to sand that stuff out. It's hard to sand heart pine anyway, so whenever you get it out of the planer, you want it to be, almost finished, where really all you have to do is run over it with some 220 just to kind of even out some frazzes. If you have any uneven spots in the wood, you can sand it out. I'm not saying that you can't, but I'm just telling you the easiest way is to make sure that your prep work is really, really good, because if it's not, you're going to catch the devil trying to finish it and making it look like something. And with this, you want to really take your time. All this wood, we had to resaw it. So we've got a 14-inch bandsaw, and it's got a 3/4 blade. I think it's a 3 TPI hooking. I think it's a hook blade, and it does really well with resawing this heart pine. You have to take it a little bit slow, just because if it hits a grain, you know, it'll try to run, and you just got to make sure that your bandsaw is set up where it's got to be almost perfect to, you know, not mess this stuff up, because it'll try to run. And more than anything, you just want to take your time. Anytime you're doing stuff like this, you just want to take your time, because you want it to look pretty. If you have to do it twice, it's wasting time, it's wasting money, energy, effort. You know, you try to do it once and do it right the first time. Not saying you won't make mistakes, but all this trim on here, we make all this in the shop. Just a regular old, I think it's a Freud router bit, maybe. And we got a router table set up in there with the bit in it, and we just run it through. So we make our own, like the trim right inside here in our panels. We make all that, and that's one thing about when you're doing heart pine. If you don't have all the right equipment to do it with, it doesn't take long to learn how to do it with what you got. Whenever we started doing this, the first piece I built out of heart pine, probably in 2007 or 8, somewhere around there, maybe 2006. We actually, all we had was a table saw and a planer, and so I had to kind of learn how to straighten wood with a table saw and a planer, and figured that out. And you know, then once we got all that figured out, we got a jointer, and that made life a whole lot easier. And then we kind of, you know, we got a bandsaw and a few more table saws, and you know, just trying to make it better all the time. But this heart pine is something really fun to work with, and if you can ever get it just right, it's something to be really proud of. Know that you salvaged this stuff and you kept it from being destroyed, because this was, I think these pieces were probably the seals under a house, and some of them were corner studs. Back when this house was built, I think it was built in 1895, somewhere around in there. And so the wood that was in it, like your corner post and anywhere like by a door and a window and stuff like that, they would frame with 4x4s. So a lot of the subframing on these older houses is 4x4 material, and a lot of the studs and everything, it's true 2x4. Whenever we say, you know, a true 2x4, that means it was 2 inches by 4 inches, and now, you know, you buy a 2x4 now and it's 1.5 inches by 3.5. But these were true 2x4, so they were actually 2 inches by 4 inches, which is good for us as cabinet guys, because we know that none of the sanding and planing is taking place on it, and we've got a little bit more material to work with. So usually, you know, once we cut our 2-inch faces out of it and stuff like that, 2.5, whatever they end up being, we've got enough left over to make our little panel trim and stuff like that. So you figure that out along the way. You don't waste anything. You know, you work really, really hard to harvest this stuff. You know, you got to go in there and tear something down, or you got to go dig the nails out of it. And once you put that much effort into something, you don't waste any of it. You make sure every piece is used. I think on this piece I had a foot of this little panel molding left over, and that was about it. Actually ended up having to rip down a seal to finish up my doors and everything. But one thing about these projects is whenever you're doing them for people, and you know, I've had people that they would tell me, man, so I got my wood from here, and I don't think that I don't think I got back what I gave them. And you know, that's sad that people do that to people. But whenever you get something, you know, like where this job came from, every piece that's on here came from that job. And you know, we put it all back on here because it's sentimental to the homeowners, and you know, we want them to have a piece of the history of the house. And I believe, if I heard correctly, that the house that this came from was this lady's grandfather's, I'm pretty sure. And so it's got family history and roots on it and all that stuff. And you know, you just kind of want to take something that was hidden and bring it out where everybody can see it and make it pretty, and you know, just take your time with it and make something that you can be proud of. If you can't put your name on it, don't send it out the door of the shop. And we'll autograph this one. I don't really know where yet, but we always, you know, any piece we build like this, we try to autograph it somewhere. I'm pleased with the stuff that gets turned out of this shop and the effort that is put into it to make sure that whenever it leaves here, that the people that end up with it are a lot happier with it than we are. I can find something wrong with everything I build. I can find something wrong with anything I've ever built. And, you know, that's part of being human. But we try to make it the best we can every time. You want to go back over these things because you will miss a couple of spots. You know, it's hard to see everything. In some parts of this, like you can see, you might not be able to see it, but right here, there's a different grain texture in this piece, just in this piece. So I'm not absorbing over here as fast as I'm absorbing right here. These yellow pieces like this, they don't absorb hardly any at all because there's so much resin in them that the oil can't really get into it. It more or less creates a little coat. It'll seep into it just a little bit, but it's not going to be as much as the red pieces, because these are a little bit closer to the outside of the tree, and these are closer to the pith, which is where all the tar is, I guess. And so anyways, the lighter colored pieces have a lot more resin in them. So they want to absorb as quickly. So we let this dry overnight, and whenever we come back tomorrow, you'll be able to see what absorbed and what didn't. Some of it, if it's dull, that means it needs some more oil on it. If it's shiny, that means it's good to go. It absorbed all it could do. Sand it off with 220, come back and just re-oil the whole thing. And that's what we always do. And then once you get done with that, you don't want this thing to be shiny at all, because you're oiling it. You're not putting any kind of finish on it, because if somebody's going to nick this thing, you know, come here and hit it with a fork or a butter knife, or accidentally kick it or something, and it's going to get dings and dents in it and stuff like that. If you put a finish coat on this, it's going to nick it off, and then you got raw wood. If you put this oil on there, it doesn't really matter, because it's going to be protected as far as it needs to be protected. You don't have to worry about scratching it and all that stuff, which is why we like to put the oil on it. So this is our back panel right here. This will actually be the end towards, like, the range will be over there. So we got the sink that'll be on this side, and the way that we built this, we got 3 drawers on each side, and then we got a trash can in the middle with a drawer on top of it. So we got a total of 7 drawers, and then a twin 35 quart trash can. And so you can see how we did the ends, and we just kind of bumped them out a little bit. I don't know if I can get my camera around there just right. But you can see, like right here, this is bumped out about 1.5 inches or 2 inches, and that way it just gives us a little bit more depth, so that whenever we wrap our baseboard around it, right there at the bottom, it just makes it look more like a piece of furniture than it does a cabinet. And when you're doing heart pine, you know, you kind of want it to look like a furniture grade piece. You don't necessarily want it to be all cabinet all the time. You know, you want it to be something special. You want it to be something when somebody sees it, they go, wow, man, that really turned out good. And I think this really did. So we're going to coat this side right here with oil. And there's really not a better finish that you can put on heart pine. You don't want to paint it. You know, it's kind of like if you paint a mahogany door, you know, you get in heart pine because of what it is, and you don't want to cover it up. And the way it smells between this oil and the way that the natural scent of the wood is, I mean, it's just, it kind of takes me back to my childhood a little bit. I just love the way this stuff smells. And we built a lot of houses with using heart pine. And I remember, you know, when I was younger and I would go to work with my dad, you know, I was, you know, 5 or 6 years old, and some of the houses we were doing then had heart pine in them, and I've just always liked the way it smelled. If you've never smelled it, it smells kind of like astringent or something like clean. It kind of smells like cleaning supplies. It's got but it's like an earthy smell, and I love it. Makes me sick as a dog, dude. I'm bad allergic to heart pine, and I'm bad allergic to cedar. And my whole house is cedar on the outside, and that's how I found out I was allergic to cedar. Because I was sick the whole time we were putting siding on my house. And I was doing a lot of heart pine work, countertops and stuff like that for me and some friends. And I stayed sick all the time and couldn't ever figure it out. And we all finally realized that I was allergic to it, and that's why I have to wear a respirator. Only whenever, once I get down to where we are now, I don't have to wear a respirator, but if I'm sanding it and stuff like that, I got to keep all this area closed up because, I got to be able to breathe the next day, and this stuff tears me up. But and if you ever want to learn how to do any of this stuff, man, just let me know. Our shop's open. We like to teach people. If you want to learn how to run the machines, if you got a question, if you're doing a woodworking project and you're not sure how to do something, if we can't get you in the right direction, I guarantee you we know somebody that can. But if you're interested in doing some stuff like this and trying to get into woodworking or something, don't be scared to ask questions. That's the only way you're gonna find out. And I found out through the years it's a lot easier to ask a stupid question and get a smart answer than it is to try to figure some things out on your own. Because a lot of this heart pine, I've ruined more heart pine than I've salvaged trying to figure out, how to finish it and ripping it on the bandsaw. And man, I've tore up bandsaw blades, and I hadn't torn the whole machine up yet, but I thought I did a few times. And when you're putting this on, you want to make sure that you got a good coat on it, but you don't want it, where it's just piled on. And, you can come back and wipe it like I'm doing now while it's still wet. If you ever stick your brush on it and it's a little tacky, just quit. Don't keep touching it. Once it gets tacky, you'll start dragging it, and man, it'll completely ruin this thing. But while it's still wet, you just kind of want to go over it and get as much of the excess off as you can, and make sure that you got every spot covered. And you'll have some that have already absorbed, like right here. This is absorbing really quick. Because there's like some dark spots right here, and this was a little bit closer up to the top of the board where I ripped. I probably planed off about 1/8 of an inch, and then this was like the outside of the beam. So you can see like these darker spots is it's probably like water, or where there was some water damage, or there was a little bit like maybe a nail was in it or something. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just its character. And I mean, it's not rotted or anything, it's perfectly fine. But these pieces right here, with them being close to the outside, they have more time to dry. I mean, they've been drying for 140 years. And so that's going to absorb a lot faster. So you just want to make sure that, you go ahead and recoat that again. And once you get it good and sealed up, we just let it sit here overnight. And like I said, if you start doing this and it feels tacky, like this side over here is already tacked up, so just gonna leave it. I don't need to do anything else to it. It'll drag it across and it'll ruin it, and then you got to sand it out, and then you got another problem. So this right here is just about ready to go, and really the only thing I got to do is do the other side and then the end, and I'll be done. But anyways, just kind of wanted to give you an idea about how we finish heart pine. And what these things look like whenever we get done with them. So this is the first coat of 2 that hopefully it'll only take 2. But it's Minwax tongue oil, easy to put on, 2-inch foam brush. Take your time, make sure you're sanded, you're prepped out, and make sure that you tack it out with a cloth to get as much dust off of it as you can. You don't have to get it all off, because whenever you sand it off that next round, it'll take it down and it'll be slick as an onion peel. So you want to just make sure that you get off as much dust as you can. Don't worry about getting it all. Oil it real good. Come back and sand it with 220 grit the next day, and it'll be ready to install. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was a little bit long video, but you know, it's just kind of what it takes. It's real time finishing one. So anyways, Armor of God Woodworks, give us a thumbs up if you liked it. And hopefully we'll have more videos for you in the future. Y'all have a blessed day.